Hi, welcome to Integrative Lawyers of the World, where we believe that lawyers can and do contribute to the healing of the world. We believe this because we see lawyers doing this around the world every day. Hi, I'm Carrie Raleigh, your host of Integrative Lawyers of the World, and joining us from Germany is Jens Magers. He is a corporate lawyer with the firm Rittershaus. He founded the firm's Sustainable Investment and Finance team. He's a lecturer in sustainability and corporate governance at one of the leading business schools in Germany, and he regularly publishes articles on corporate and sustainability matters. When we learned that Jens was going to be a guest on the podcast, I was very excited to learn more about sustainability and investing. As a little caveat to this conversation, and I hope you'll all have some patience with me, I know very little about the intricacies of finance and investment, but I do know that where and how we place our money is an indication of where and how we place our focus on the world. It is key, in my opinion, to how we may save the planet on where and how we place our money. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and you can check out this episode and all our episodes at www.integrativelaw.com. Hi, Jens. How are you?
Hello, Carrie. It's great to see you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. It is wonderful to get to know you and to get to see you, at least via Zoom, meet you via Zoom. When I was reading about your background in sustainable investing and finance, it brought to my mind a book that I read a few years ago by Naomi Klein. The book is This Changes Everything: Capitalism versus Climate. After reading that book and several other articles or listening to different podcasts on the topic, it seems like there's really, or some people are placing an odds between climate and capitalism. We can't save the climate if we keep doing capitalism the way that we do it. So I guess my question is, can we truly achieve or be sustainable with capitalism? Or what are your thoughts on the dynamic between capitalism and sustainability?
Carrie, I think you just went to the core of the issue of the problem. The thing is that, and what is actually already happening, at least in many parts of the world, consciousness is rising, and we understand that we must take the leap and make a systemic shift from the original sole stakeholder interest, which is in all jurisdictions the center of the interest of all corporations, to the other stakeholders of the company, and hopefully considering the whole planet and the system and all externalities concerned. So this is the process which is currently being pushed by many lawyers also, but politicians likewise. So, and my personal view on this is that, of course, that this is what we need to do in order to survive on this beautiful planet. Because if we go on investing our money how we did it before, we have clear figures that this will not work out for the next 100 or 200 years.
It's a way to working toward the climate, or to reverse climate change, slow it down, reverse it, and to work with the environment and protecting our environment, our relationship with it. That's not to, how can I put this? Hoo-hoo fruit, like to, like, some like hippie-esque, you know, people say, oh, you want to save the environment, you're hippies over there. This is now,
Absolutely.
let's put it in business pragmatic terms so that more people can come on board with it.
That's absolutely the case, because of course, you could say it's a personal matter if or not I'm interested in protecting the environment. If I choose to fly from Munich to Frankfurt, or from short distances, or how many times per year I'm traveling by airplane. Yes, of course, it's a personal decision what you're doing, but you have an impact with what you're doing, and it's the famous imprint we place on the planet by our acts. But if you look at the corporations, all companies, they live from the environment. I mean, if the system is breaking down because the climate is getting worse and we cannot be in our countries anymore because let's say there are too many floodings and resources are getting scarce, etc. Business will automatically go down, and this is what for many decades, although the Club of Rome already, I think, more than 50 years ago, told the politicians and the world that this is gonna happen. And I think time is now right that also the companies have in many ways understood, maybe not completely, but I think we are on a good path to a sort of transformation. And so I think we come from the more personal perspective, which was the start, and it started in the 1970s, 80s, when people went to the streets and they said, we have to fight for the climate and we have to protect the environment. And now I think there is a much more global and more structured movement, and it's on a good way. Of course, we see that what is happening right now in Ukraine, or what Russia is currently doing, I don't say it blocks us, but in a way it reverses many of our achievements we have reached up until 2 months ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually had it on my list to ask you about how does Ukraine and Russia's war with Ukraine impact of what we're trying to do, or what you've been trying to do with sustainable investing. And so how you're saying it reverses a lot of what we have worked for in the past. How can you explain that a little bit more?
I think so, because what is happening right now is not only killing people and so on, but also it is destroying the environment. It's destroying the atmosphere. We are producing arms. We were on a way to reduce the production of arms, and now we are going back to producing arms, which has also a great impact on the environment, because the production of arms is not only bad for humans, but also for the environment.
And that's even just in the production of the arms, let alone like using the arms as weapons. Like just in producing the arms takes energy in the environment.
Just the production of arms is per se extremely impactful. It's a bad thing, you know, but also for the whole atmosphere. And what was happening before was that we saw investments in renewable energies, and these investments go on, and they are getting a push here in Europe due to the dependencies on delivery of energy from Russia. So you could say this is a positive aspect of the whole catastrophe, but I don't think that this is the case, because in the end, the war destroys so much and destroys so many resources which have before been provided for positive investments, and this will take a lot of time to heal, even after the war.
I'm wondering if you said in this struggle with the dependency on oil or gas from Russia, will that, pardon my pun, fuel more investments in renewable energies, or is it siphoning some investments off of renewable energies back into investing into production of weapons or production of other things?
It's both. What is happening currently, at least here in Germany, is that we see a lot of more investments in renewable energies. And just yesterday, the state of Bavaria, let's say, deliberated that more wind parks could be built on the state's territory. But likewise, of course, the government has to invest in the arms production. And it goes without saying that the resources which are being used for the production of arms cannot be used for social investments or environmental investments.
It seems in the US, a lot of the debate on some news programs, they frame it as, because of, Russia and its cutting off the supply of gas and oil, that in the US we need to now open a lot of the pipelines that were closed down for environmental reasons. We need to open them, and we need to drill more, do more, right? Drill more into this. And they put it as a dichotomy of, we need to do this now because there's not enough energy coming from Russia, or we need to make sure that we're not dependent on any country. But nowhere in the conversation does it come up with alternative things. It's like the only way to get more energy is to drill more and open up our pipelines. It's not let's create more renewable sources. Let's put money into this so that in so much time we can be off this. And I was having this conversation with my dad, and his point is, well, we don't have the time. We need this energy now, so it'll take 20 years to do that stuff, or it's longer. And my point is, how do I know in 20 years from now you're going to say we can't do it because it's going to take another 20 years? We've been talking about this as early as the 1970s. Why hasn't the investment and stuff been in place since the 1970s? What will it take for us to fully invest and put our money behind the goals of, we will be net zero energy sufficient?
I totally agree, because there will always be a reason why we don't really effectively start to transform the energy production as a whole. I mean, as a matter of fact, now in Germany also, they're discussing not to switch off nuclear power plants, which has been planned 10 years ago. And I fully understand why they're discussing this, because the economic impact of a total breakdown of the energy is even worse, also from not only from an environmental perspective, but also from a social and societal perspective. So you have to act right now. We are in such a bad position currently, because we were for large part dependent on oil and gas delivered by Russia. It is the dependency is such that one asks oneself, how could that happen? I mean, how could you ever be so dependent on a country like Russia? I mean, it was still clear that this is not a democracy. And it was so clear that a mind shift there could always take place. And there were so many signs that there are really some really great issues going on there, especially with Putin and so on. So I personally didn't really know how, to which extent we were completely dependent on Russia, and many other people as well. So for now, I can only tell you what is happening right now in Germany. What is happening right now in Germany is that the private sector is investing immensely in renewables. Hydropower plants, we have many clients, we assist capital management companies in the investment of different renewable energy projects like hydropower plants, solar plants and wind parks all over Germany and all over Europe. This is happening in the private sector. Also, the German government is subsidizing investments in renewables, and it's getting easier to invest in renewables. This is what is happening, what was going on already before the war. But simultaneously, what is going on is what I just said. We are discussing on not switching off nuclear power plants. And they do have maybe the worst impact on the environment for the future, because you cannot store the uranium stuff securely. It will always be there. So also 200 years from now, they will have to deal with it. So we had a common understanding that they need to be switched off. But this situation really forces us to just go on like before.
It forces us to look at how committed are we to our goals that we previously set.
Yeah, it is not, in my opinion, it's not so easy, because think about what happens if really we have major breakdowns, like no energy at all, for a day or so. The impact would be disastrous, because the industry would have standstills.
But could there be a way of being committed to it where, like, assuming that there's no other possibility for the energy, you need to have the nuclear power plants, but say we need this in the short run. We thought we were going to close them down for good. We're going to keep them open for another 10 years, 5 years. And in that time, we're going to build, and here's our plan, how in 5 years we can be off these completely. And I'm not seeing, like, and granted, I'm not looking everywhere I probably should be looking, but in the discussions, it's like, we're going to keep this open. And it's not, I don't see that other discussion. Here's the plan that we're going to be able to close them down in 5 years.
We have that plan in Germany.
Okay.
So I think in this respect, in Europe, we are way ahead of the US, because investments in sustainability and the commitment of the European Union in the transformation of the European Union to a net zero zone is extremely high. I think it is maybe, but we have the best statutory laws in place in the world in order to obtain the sustainability or the sustainable development goals, which have been formulated like 10 years ago or so, the SDGs.
So are they still talking about how to proceed with those goals, even if we have to keep our nuclear power plants open?
I mean, it's premature
Yeah.
We
Okay.
are in the midst of a crisis, and they're discussing like urgent matters. But we still stick to the agenda which has been set. So until, I mean, I'm not fully informed because I'm working like 12 hours per day, but as far as I'm informed, up until today, we don't have yet decided not to switch off any of the nuclear power plants. So there's a discussion going on right now.
Okay, wonderful. I will say, I think with the EU and Germany being on the forefront in environmental matters, way back in, I did a study abroad in Italy in 1997, but after it, I visited a friend in Germany. And at that time, just the simple thing, I noticed like the streets, everything was cleaner in Germany, but their trash cans at that time already were divided in 3 bins for trash, for recyclables, and I think food waste. They were divided into 3. We still don't have that in the US. Like
I
just at the
know.
very basic thing. And I was just like, why not? But when you were saying previously it was going from our personal choices, how often we travel, do we take a plane or do we take a train, versus now seeing what corporations and systems can do. I do travel a lot, and I will look to see if I can, in the US, it's particularly hard to find non-airplane options. And so where I would like to see private investors is I would love to see more investment into trains, into better busing routes, something to make non-air travel the way to go.
Trains, especially. I mean, we have, or I know that in the US there are also private train companies. In Europe also, but to build the tracks and high-speed tracks, this is really an issue which needs to be dealt with by the governments. And maybe in Europe, we are fortunate because for many decades now, in many major European countries, we have green parties, which you in the US don't have. And we are fortunate because our continent is quite small. So high-speed trains have been built since the 1960s. And we have really excellent networks. You can travel by TGV from Munich to Paris. And Italy, because you spend time in Italy, I mean, I appreciate that because, I went to law school in Italy too, but also in Germany, and I'm a lawyer in Milan as well. So it's a country I know quite well. And Italy also has an excellent high-speed train network. You can travel in like 3.5 hours from Milan to Rome, and in like 4.5 hours to Naples. And this is really great because if you take the plane, it's the way to the airport and the traveling time and so on, it's not a big difference. So it's not a different at all. So it's really an alternative. And we saw that air traffic was really going down in Europe due to the good connections, and they are still working on the networks. So, but this is something where the private sector is not so called to do the investments. You as a person maybe are called to vote for the right party.
Can you just tell me what sustainable investment is?
Investments with a strong mission focus. This could be an alternative description. And you can call an impact investment also with a social mission, an impact investment, but also, of course, an investment which is aimed at fighting the climate change, aimed at protecting the environment. So this, in a nutshell, is called an impact investment. something where you as an investor are doing an impact, a positive impact, of course, not a negative one. So, and over the years, the term impact investment has been created. So it's nothing more and nothing less than investments in startups which have maybe a technological idea how to measure CO2 impact of buildings, or you're investing in hydro power plants. You know, this is a bit the industry.
What interested you in sustainable investment and finance?
Okay, this is really a very personal story. I'm a passionate lawyer. I love corporate law. I love mergers and acquisitions, international transactions. This is really what thrilled me right from the beginning. And I was already far into my career when I was like wondering what could I do which really brings also a positive impact to the world. And personally, it was a difficult time for me. So I did a lot of work on myself, like psychological training. I was introduced to several meditation techniques, and I've been doing yoga for nearly 20 years now. So it was, you know, like this kind of mood also. But I knew that, of course, I could have considered to be a lawyer focusing on social matters or asylum matters, as a matter of fact. But that's not me, you know. It's absolutely not what interests me, not from a personal perspective, but from a professional perspective. So I was always like, okay, I'm in a capitalist business. This is my profession. There's nothing I can do about it. In 2015, I think it was, when I, by coincidence, really, she sat next to me. I met Mariana Bozeja. She's a member of the Club of Rome, today a dear friend of mine. And it was really like, you know, the person you need to meet to understand what you can do in your profession. And she introduced me to the Club of Rome, and I went to several conventions with her on climate change and environmental matters. And there I met also colleagues from the US who were already focusing on impact investing as a specialization in corporate law. And, you know, impact investing in our language, it is private equity or venture capital investments with a mission focus, like I tried to explain before. So starting from there, I got really curious. And in Europe, I must say, at the time, it was completely unknown, this field. And I was completely new to it also, of course. And I tried to understand what are the particular issues of corporate law or company law which are concerned in order to facilitate let's say, the protection of a mission of an investor, which is your client.
Yeah.
And I started studying American law, in fact. And this is the weird part, because before we said on a governmental level, we in Europe are maybe ahead of the US, but in the private sector, what impact investing is, as far as impact investing is concerned, the US are far ahead from us. So and I try to yes, introduce the concepts from American law into our law, which is not so easy because the systems are quite different. And I started basically from there. I mean, I met the first clients, the first fund companies to assist in their investments, and I started off from there, basically.
So would your client be an investor or the company?
It could be both, because in the meantime, not only I'm specializing in venture capital investments or in private equity investments or like investments in acquisitions of renewable energies, but also in systems of corporations on corporate governance issues, for example. But in the beginning, it was not the case.
So some of the concepts that you would use or that the company can use to make sure that they can be aligned with the investors and the investors can have some sort of assurance that the company will stay aligned or be effective in their mission? Is it things like what's negotiated in maybe the shareholder agreements or the bylaws of the companies? Okay.
Exactly. And what is most important are the investors' rights or the investors' entitlement to control the management of the company, where they place the investment. And that's now, let's not get too technical because I mean, that's really, really technical stuff, but what I can say maybe very simplistic, that in German law, in German corporate law, especially in stock corporations, it's really difficult to have proper controlling rights for a single stakeholder. So, and this is a major issue.
It was an article entitled Sustainable Investment Law, How to Legally Implement Sustainable Standards. And I think that was part of the CSR, Sustainability Ethics and Governance book series. But there it seemed like you were walking companies through, like, what are the legal issues involved? If you want to become I think were you walking there through things that companies can look for if they want to attract impact investors, as well as things that investors should look for?
Exactly, yes. Also from the perspective of the investor, because when I wrote the article, it was in 2017, I think, it still was not so common knowledge as it is today. So there's quite an evolution been going on in the meantime, also as far as the market is more informed on these issues than maybe 5 years ago. So I remember in 2017, when I first talked to people in Milan about impact investing and sustainable finance, etc., they didn't know what I was talking about. So, and now it's totally on vogue. You have the impression whole Europe is getting totally sustainable. And this is maybe not always the case. So we are now more or less dealing with all those negative issues. You know, every positive movement also has its downsides. And, you know, people trying to greenwash, they're trying to make money, because the positive thing is that with impact investing, you can have amazing turnovers, you know. It's really a more sustainable investment, in fact, than many other investments. So, and this is what the market has understood. So we are now dealing with a different problem. When I wrote the article, or in fact, it's not an article, it's a chapter in a handbook, I was taking the two perspectives you were perfectly describing before. I was walking the investor who is interested in investing their money in investments which are sustainable. Either they're social, environmental, or for the protection of the planet, or also focused on more governmental issues like the implementation of equal pay in a company or other social issues in a company. And also, of course, the perspective of the company, what do we have to offer and how do we have to present ourselves to attract impact investors.
What do you mean by greenwashing?
We are taking a brief break from this conversation to ask for your financial support. With each episode, we hope you can see how lawyers and peacemakers like you are contributing to the healing of the world. It takes many kinds of resources for the integrative law movement to keep going and affecting change. Your monetary donation can help us continue this important work by supporting the activities and the members of this community. Each contribution goes to promote the stability and accessibility of the movement and to support basic expenses like our Mighty Network Group, web hosting, social media and event management, and this Integrative Lawyers of the World podcast. Because we like to give people choices, we have ongoing monthly options to match your budget, or you can make a one-time donation. Thanks to our non-profit corporate sponsor, the Renaissance Law Society, US supporters are able to make tax-deductible donations. Supporters from other countries, please check your local tax laws. To help establish confidence in your choice to support us, we have set up an open, collective, transparent plan to track how the community money is spent. For ways to support the integrative law movement and our world-changing work, go to our website at www.integrativelaw.com and click on Support the Movement tab at the top of the page. Another great way to support us is to rate us 5 stars and comment, like, follow or subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. These ratings and interactions help us get seen and heard by even more people to make an even stronger impact. Thank you for your support and spending time with us today. Enjoy the rest of this conversation.
Greenwashing, maybe in the context I used it before, is not so correct because I was talking about investments. You can label an investment as being a sustainable investment. You present it like that. But in fact, if you do a proper analysis, you will find out that it is not so sustainable at all. Maybe it's not completely not sustainable, but it's not an investment which brings a great benefit to the environment or in the protection of our climate, you know? And greenwashing is more like if a company declares to have a proper, let's say, a proper eco management system. And in fact, they don't. So, and they go on the market telling the market, we are sustainable because we fly less. Or in fact, you cannot control it because they don't have any audit and any certificate or anything, you know. This is maybe what I meant when I said greenwashing.
They use on the company side, they use the labels or the words to present themselves as greenwashing, but they don't actually implement the actions or the procedures or the practices.
Exactly. And this is what you have to be careful when you place an investment and you want to invest also in an SDG fund, how they call it now. You know, I mean, as a private investor, the same applies to me, of course. When I have to invest my private money, it's not so easy because banks nowadays, they offer you like the possibility to invest into sustainable funds, and you have to do a proper due diligence by yourself to understand which are the targets the fund is investing in. So you go safest if you invest in funds which are investing in renewables because they are sustainable, because for the rest, it's getting really difficult.
Is that something that you'll help your investor clients in to do like the due diligence?
Yes, of course we can do that. But our main focus is really we assist investors in the acquisition, for example, of a company which has several wind parks and hydropower plants, etc. Or we invest, we assist investors in the when they enter a company and they finance the company, and the company, for example, just give you this example because I had it recently. It's a technology company and they developed an AI program in order to assess the CO2 impact of buildings. I think I told you the example before. And then we do the whole due diligence program, the whole due diligence, and then also we negotiate the share purchase agreement and the shareholders agreement and so on.
When you brought this idea to your firm to start this team, what was their response?
I mean, when I started off in 2015, I just talked to some of my colleagues and they were interested, and but I did it very much by myself at the time. I must say I was really fortunate because the firm was extremely open, and they gave me also the time and the space to develop the whole thing, you know. And we must have been one of the first German law firms to have a sustainable investment and finance team. And I invented the concept, in fact, because what I came to the conclusion after 2 or 3 years working in the field, really doing market research, what is happening in the US, etc. I came to the conclusion that we need an interdisciplinary team. Let's say not only a team of people like myself focusing on company, corporate law, and banking and finance law, but all the other areas of law which are relevant when you are really focusing on sustainable investments, like public law, environmental law, etc., etc. So what happened a couple of years ago was in 2018. The firm's management asked me to do a presentation for all colleagues and present my concept and explain what my plans are and so on. And it was really a great evening. I was extremely nervous because I thought maybe they could not be interested, or say Jens is always having those weird ideas or so. But it was in fact like, it was a great event because I talked like 30 minutes. It was not a long presentation. And afterwards, I got calls from, I think, the first 5 colleagues who really wanted to join the team immediately from different sectors of the law. So, and we started from there, and it was really an exciting journey. And today we are 14 people in the firm. We are meeting regularly. currently we are working also on a new website and so on, because you evolve, the team has evolved, and so we need to change the presentation on our website. And we are working together now in many transactions where many fields of law need to be considered, like public law, energy law, corporate law, finance law, etc. And it's been a very innovative team, and this is also the spirit, because we are all people who do a very classical job, and it was, for all of us, it was really fascinating to have something really new and which has not been, let's say, elaborated by other lawyers 50 years ago, and this also helped us to become thought leaders in the field. In fact, we were the first legal practitioners to be asked to, one of the first, of course, to be lecturers at university, because the whole field, especially in corporate law, is in full evolution now, and also in banking law. One of my colleagues is a lecturer also at the university where I am, and he's a lecturer on impact investing, the finance side, And it's so interesting to discuss all these topics in the team, and we are, of course, proud of it, and we're working on different handbooks right now and commentaries, and I think this is really a great project, and it wouldn't have been possible to realize it if the firm had blocked it, Because in the first place, of course, there were skeptical voices, yes, because it was not mainstream, and we are one of the leading German law firms, and with a long history of over 50 years, and it could have also been seen as a, oh, you're getting hippie or so.
To have a firm support that, the initiative of it, to me, says a lot about the firm too.
And maybe I can add, because this maybe is interesting in this context, because we in our team, we very early discussed that in order to really show that what we are doing, we are also living what we are doing. In order to show or to demonstrate that we take serious what we are telling, we in the team very early discussed that we need also to commit to certain standards. So we proposed the management to get a certificate on a proper eco management in the company, and they accepted. So this is a long process. We're due to be audited this autumn. An eco management certificate. It's a German certificate, so it doesn't help if I tell you how it's named, but they prescribe very clearly what a company like ours or law firm needs to comply with to get the certificate. And I can tell you it's a very costly and very time-consuming process, which we started more than a year ago. It's focused on ecology. So yes, they look at what papers do we buy. What is the travel policy of the firm? So we have introduced a travel policy which forbids air travel within Germany. with some exemptions, like if you have more than 6 hours by train, you can fly or so, in order to reduce significantly our impact on the environment. This is what they are looking at. We use eco-friendly products in the company, biological coffee, biological fruits. We have biological floors. We have a proper light and energy management in place, and simultaneously we introduced or we established a commission which was called to implement a code of conduct for the firm, where we focus very much also not only on our environmental issues, but also on social issues and on diversity. And this is really highly innovative, at least in Germany. And what is happening right now, Carrie, is that we are being asked to train our colleagues from other firms on how to transform their organizations in the same way.
I love it.
It's really great, yes.
Yeah.
And what really amuses me is that now we are also training other firms. I mean, but it's a good thing. I mean,
it is a good thing.
Every firm should, because when I first did, I started 2 or 3 months ago, and we had like a podcast with different German law firms, and they said, "Oh, I don't think we need to have a certificate on our proper eco-management system. We can just introduce a proper ecology management system and stick to it. We don't need to get audited." And this is quite wrong, because I assume to be quite conscious on what is negative for the environment and what is not. And of course, we are not being audited just like this. We have a firm which is assisting us in getting the certificate. And these are excellent experts. They can tell you exactly what in your company needs to be changed. And you as a layman wouldn't ever think about that. You wouldn't even consider that, to have a button on your desk in order to just block all energy from going when you're leaving the office, These are very small things which have quite an impact, because I personally didn't know that the computer is still using electric energy, even if it's switched off.
How did you feel? How do you feel now in your practice? You said it was a few years ago you were at the place where you were you were already practicing for several years, but you were looking for something a little bit different or more. I don't think you didn't use the word meaningful, but it sounded like that's what you were going for.
All the people say that. I mean, all the people who want to change something for the better. And I met a few of them recently or over the years, and for us, it's all the same. It's nothing very personal. I think you told me when we first spoke a similar story. I mean, you at a point in your life, you think it's all good for me now. I mean, I have a good position. I have a certain know-how, but what could I do in order to do something good? So this is really the point where it all started for me and for all the others on the path.
How do you feel about your practice and coming into work and doing what you do?
So this is really, for me, a major point to emphasize. I believe that every human being should really do kind of therapy, psychotherapy, in order to understand better what is going on. And then you have to stick to a discipline. You can choose what you want to do. I mean, I don't say that all of us need to meditate, but in fact, I think it's a very good method to come to terms with your personal issues, karmic issues, or whatever. You understand really better what is happening when you are being triggered. Why did you always react in this or this way? So over the years, it's a very long process. From if you decide today and you see a teacher or a therapist, give yourself 10 years from now, and then something shifts profoundly. And what I discovered is a very long detox period. It is really, like you think things are getting worse, but they're getting better. And then at a point, everything gets so much clearer and you can focus much more on what you really love to do. And in my case, it's my job. And this is why I can really answer, yes, it's important to have this kind of discipline and a practice. You call it practice, which is maybe a nicer word. I mean, discipline sounds so rigid, which it is not. And it is really fundamental in my opinion. You need to have it.
A thread that I see in all of my various guests that we've interviewed so far is a level of personal development work or working with a therapist or some type of meditation practice, something that's along the lines of personal development. I think each of my guests have worked on their personal development, and then that led to maybe changes or elevations of their professional development as well.
We understand, we as human beings, we understand that when we work on our shadows, when we begin to understand that, maybe you start off and you think, I'm a nice person. And in fact, maybe you are a nice person, but you are maybe also an evil person. So one has also to accept that there is good and evil, and in yourself. And then if you work on that and you understand better when it's coming up, you can recognize it, you can refrain from going the old way. And this, of course, maybe you can say it has nothing to do with a highly professional job like a lawyer. I mean, you stick to the rules, you have all the rules in place. That's not true. And if you are more together, you're more not controlled, you are more authentic, you are more grounded, and you really you change in a way which is so subtle. People at first they don't notice, but it has an impact. And yes, I think that's the point I wanted to make. I think it's really, it helps, and it's good for your career. You can say if there are skeptical people out there, I can tell you it's good for yourself and for your career, and it's good for your clients, because you really put their interest first. And this is something which you only understand deeply if you have a proper spiritual practice, I believe.
One of the pillars of integrative law is authenticity. Being authentic with yourself and then practicing in a way that honors your authenticity. And then also when you were talking about your team, the Sustainable Investment and Finance team, how you needed to integrate other lawyers who were in other disciplines and bring them all into the team, is another component of integrative law on more of a organizational scope of bringing different pieces of the puzzle together so that you get a whole practice or a whole system or a whole organization. Do you consider yourself an integrative lawyer?
I do not consider myself anything. I mean, I don't like labels. Language is important, but it's also misleading. And I try to be a good-humored, grounded, and yes, sane person. This is what I want to be. And I want to give the best possible advice to my clients in my business. Maybe you can call this integrative or integral or whatever. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Ken Wilber's integral theory. So let's not touch on this now, but the thing with the labels for me is misleading. A label always is maybe misleading or is not all comprehensive. At the same time, I understand that we sometimes have to label things.
What does being an integrative lawyer mean to you? Like beyond the label, what would it mean to you?
To me, it means to be completely open to everyone, to anything, to commit to what you're doing completely, to abide to it's not meant to be rules, but a certain ethical code, which is something very natural, which we all have because we are born with it. We know what is good and what is bad. And always strive to go beyond and work on yourself. Let's say, to combine your professional life, your spiritual life, and your private life, to have one whole body,
Is there anything that you would like to share or discuss that we didn't have a chance to talk about?
The most important thing for me was just to show that you can change something also in a very traditional profession like mine, like the lawyer's profession, which is really not one of the most innovative ones. And that you can have a lot of fun while doing it. And I certainly hope that we in our societies will succeed in, let's say, convince all the others who are still skeptical on what is best to be done for our planet and for the people on the planet. So this is maybe what I would like to add.
Well, thank you so much. And that's a very valid and important point to add, so I'm glad that you did. Thank you so much for joining us at Integrative Lawyers of the World. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you, Carrie.
As we were saying goodbye after our initial recording, our conversation continued, and Jens was saying something that I would like to, share with our listeners. So, Jens, you were talking about social investing.
Yes, and it is important also to consider social investments. And we are really talking not about philanthropy, but investments with a turnaround. And you can, for example, invest into funds which are mainly invested in like homes for elder people, which are being built all over Europe, for example, with a good also service assistance, etc., for the elderly. Or you have investments into asylum homes with proper equipment, modern housing concepts, and so on. And because I don't know how it's working in the US, but at least in Europe and also in Germany, the government and the state in general, they don't have the means anymore to provide for the infrastructure for all social issues we have currently. So private investors are very much called to contribute to implement proper infrastructure and systems for several social issues, which I tried to highlight before.
An investor, they're putting their money into something that they want to do good, but at the end of the day, it's an investment. They want to have a return on their investment and get profits. How does that tie in with the social nature or the public nature of these? Are some of these projects ones that can be profitable?
They can be, yes, because they are structured such that you reach the social scope, but simultaneously you get the return from the investment. The company makes turnover, and you as an investor get your percentage out of the investment.
I guess where I'm thinking of is like, say you're investing in a company that wants to build homes for the elderly, homes that take care of them and do a good job. In order for them to get a return on the investment, are not the individual elderly, the rates that they charge to the people who will occupy these homes, will they be at a higher rate so that the investors can make a return on their investment?
It's more that maybe I'm not an expert in this field, I must say, but there are subsidiaries, for example, from the state, so the state makes sure that that what the elderly people pay is on the same level, like in a home which is built and managed by the state. But this is so European, I don't think that this concept is at all for you accessible, because you don't have those stately owned social welfare institutions, which in Europe, in continental Europe in particular, just due to our history, they're so common.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing and adding this additional insight to us, and we'll stop the recording again.